SZA, pronounced SZA, is an American singer and songwriter known for her unique blend of R&B, neo-soul, hip-hop, and alternative styles. Her real name is Solána Imani Rowe, and she rose to prominence with her debut studio album ctrl in 2017, which received widespread critical acclaim and earned her multiple Grammy nominations. Tracks like Love Galore, The Weekend, and Broken Clocks became fan favorites. SZA, born Solána Imani Rowe, represents a unique and powerful force within the contemporary music landscape, particularly in the realm of alternative R&B. Her artist identity is one of the most distinctive in the genre, shaped by a fusion of eclectic musical influences, spiritual introspection, and emotional rawness. She doesn't conform to conventional definitions of pop or R&B music. Instead, she exists in a fluid space that allows her to experiment and evolve freely. Her voice, often described as ethereal and richly textured, serves as a key component of her sonic identity. It's both fragile and forceful, capable of conveying vulnerability and confidence within the same breath. This duality in tone mirrors the emotional complexity of her lyrics, which frequently explore self-doubt, love, insecurity, and existential questioning. What makes SZA stand out is her authenticity. She doesn't sing from a polished, unreachable pedestal, but from a deeply personal, flawed, and very human place. That honesty forms the backbone of her identity as an artist and helps to create a resonant connection with listeners, especially young women navigating their own journeys of identity and emotional growth. One striking aspect of SZA's identity is her rejection of traditional genre boundaries. Though she is frequently categorized as an R&B artist, her music often incorporates elements of hip-hop, indie rock, neo-soul, and even grunge. Her debut album, ctrl, is a perfect example of this genre fluidity. Tracks like Drew Barrymore lean into a lo-fi indie aesthetic, while songs like Love Galore feature trap beats and a collaboration with rapper Travis Scott, showing her comfort in hip-hop-infused production. The blending of sonic textures creates a listening experience that feels both modern and nostalgic, familiar yet daring. Even the structure of her songs can be unconventional, with irregular phrasing, minimal hooks, and spoken word sections that feel like diary entries more than formulaic lyrics. This deliberate departure from the mainstream is not an accident. It is a core part of SZA's creative philosophy. She's not interested in following the mold. She's interested in breaking it and forming a new one that reflects her lived experiences and artistic vision without compromise. In addition to her musical style, SZA's personal story and background contribute heavily to her identity. Born in St. Louis, Missouri, and raised in Maplewood, New Jersey, SZA grew up in a conservative Muslim household. Her father was a CNN executive producer, and her mother worked at AT&T. Her upbringing exposed her to strict spiritual and social expectations, many of which she grappled with as she came of age. These internal conflicts frequently show up in her music, where she discusses the push and pull between societal roles and personal freedom. For instance, in songs like Normal Girl, she openly contemplates the desire to fit in and be accepted, while also recognizing her own inability and perhaps unwillingness to conform. The vulnerability she expresses is rooted not just in romantic turmoil, but also in questions of self-acceptance, spiritual conflict, and identity formation. These are not surface-level concerns, but deeply layered reflections that reveal the depth of her introspective nature. Her physical appearance and public persona also challenge mainstream standards in the entertainment industry. SZA has often spoken about her own struggles with body image, self-esteem, and anxiety. Rather than masking these insecurities, she brings them into her art, allowing them to shape the themes of her music and influence the way she presents herself to the world. This commitment to transparency is another defining aspect of her artist identity. In interviews and public appearances, she often comes across as unfiltered, even awkward, but in a way that is deeply relatable and refreshing. She doesn't try to project perfection. Instead, she presents herself as a work in progress, someone figuring things out in real time. This resonates particularly with millennial and Gen Z audiences, who value authenticity and emotional truth over polished personas. SZA's songwriting process also offers insight into her creative identity. She has described it as organic, almost chaotic, often recording in stream of consciousness style, letting emotion guide her more than structure. This approach results in lyrics that feel spontaneous yet profound, filled with unfinished thoughts, fragmented ideas, and poetic metaphors that leave room for interpretation. For example, in Supermodel, she opens with lines that feel more like a confession than a verse. "I've been secretly banging your homeboy. Why you in Vegas all up on Valentine's Day?" The directness is jarring, but it's also gripping in its honesty. She's not trying to dress up her truth, she's laying it bare. This raw lyrical content is a hallmark of her artistry, and it distinguishes her from many of her contemporaries who may lean more heavily on stylized or abstract storytelling. SZA's music feels like an open journal, and the listener is given the rare privilege of reading the pages. Another defining element of SZA's artistic identity is her spiritual and philosophical curiosity. Though raised in a Muslim household, her lyrics and interviews reflect a broader, more universalist view of spirituality. She often references the universe, karma, and energy in her songs, suggesting an interest in metaphysical ideas and self-realization. This spiritual dimension adds yet another layer to her music, elevating it beyond personal narrative into the realm of existential exploration. In tracks like Good Days, she ruminates on time, growth, and healing, turning what could be a simple R&B track into a meditation on transformation and peace. The depth of this perspective positions her not just as a singer or songwriter, but as a thinker and philosopher in her own right. Someone using art not just to entertain, but to understand the world and her place in it. SZA's breakthrough album ctrl, released on June 9, 2017, marked a pivotal moment not only in her career, but also in the broader landscape of contemporary R&B. This debut studio album, released under Top Dog Entertainment and RCA Records, instantly distinguished SZA as a fresh, fearless, and emotionally honest voice. While she had already begun to gain attention through earlier EPs like Z, 2014, it was ctrl that solidified her status as a major artist. The album was a deeply personal exploration of themes like love, self-worth, betrayal, sexuality, and the complicated nature of modern relationships. What made ctrl stand out wasn't just its lyrical content, but the vulnerability and imperfection SZA embraced in both her writing and delivery. The album avoided polished pop formulas in favor of raw, unfiltered emotion, blending alternative R&B with neo-soul, hip-hop, and even indie rock influences. SZA's candid voice, sometimes shaky, sometimes strong, but always emotionally resonant, provided a sense of intimacy that resonated deeply with a generation of listeners who were yearning for music that reflected the messy reality of their inner lives. One of the most defining features of ctrl is its refusal to offer easy resolutions. Instead of singing about perfect love or clean breakups, SZA delves into the in-between spaces, the uncertainties, insecurities, and contradictions that so often define romantic and personal relationships. The opening track, Supermodel, sets the tone with an acoustic guitar loop and a monologue-style confession about heartbreak and self-doubt. "I could be your supermodel if you believe. If you see it in me, see it in me, see it in me, she sings, revealing the deeply embedded desire to be validated by someone who has already emotionally abandoned her. There's no attempt to disguise her vulnerability. In fact, it's laid out so plainly that it becomes disarming. That rawness becomes the thread that ties the entire album together. Throughout ctrl, SZA offers journal-like introspections, often voiced from positions of pain or confusion, but never without agency or insight. Rather than playing the victim, she allows herself to be fully human, flawed, searching, hopeful, and hurt. The track, The Weekend, became one of the most iconic songs on the album and exemplifies SZA's unorthodox approach to love and relationships. The song, framed by lush, atmospheric production, tells the story of a woman sharing a man with other women, fully aware of the situation and unapologetically asserting her role in it. My man is your man, heard it's her man too, she sings in a chorus that sparked endless discussions about modern love, side chick culture, and female autonomy. What some critics initially interpreted as submission or self-degradation was reframed by many listeners as an honest depiction of the realities many women face in relationships, and a bold reclaiming of power by naming those realities out loud. The song was not about endorsing infidelity, but about exposing the emotional negotiations that happen behind closed doors. SZA's ability to articulate such nuanced emotional territory made her a voice for many who had previously felt unseen in mainstream music. Another standout moment on the album is Drew Barrymore, a track that highlights SZA's introspection and yearning for self-acceptance. Named after the actress who often portrayed awkward, offbeat characters, the song is a melancholic reflection on insecurity, especially in the context of love and social perception. Am I warm enough for you outside, baby? She asks, casting herself in the role of someone trying to fit into someone else's ideal. The song is riddled with self-doubt, but is also full of strength, as it lays bare the internal battles many young women face in trying to be desirable while staying true to themselves. In interviews, SZA has mentioned that the song and much of the album came from a place of intense emotional chaos, which she chose not to clean up or overproduce. That decision added to the album's authenticity and contributed to the emotional impact it had on its listeners. Production on ctrl was handled by an eclectic mix of producers including Thank God for Cody, Carter Lang, and Top Dog Entertainment's in-house talent, like Dave Free and Anthony Top Dog Tiffith. The result was a soundscape that was richly layered yet minimal enough to let SZA's voice and lyrics take center stage. Tracks like Broken Clocks merge dreamy synths with steady beats, giving space for her voice to weave in and out of memory and reflection. In that song, she sings about the repetition of emotional cycles and the illusion of time, an existential undercurrent that runs throughout the album. Even the skits and interludes, such as snippets of conversations with her mother and grandmother, add a generational depth to the album's themes of control, identity, and emotional independence. These intergenerational voices serve as both anchors and contrast to SZA's own experiences, highlighting how women across time have negotiated their roles in love, family, and self-discovery. The album's title itself, ctrl, is a powerful symbol of SZA's artistic intent. It refers to the idea of control over one's narrative, over one's choices, and over the emotional chaos that defines human connection. However, instead of presenting herself as someone who has mastered control, SZA uses the album to question and deconstruct it. She often admits to lacking control, feeling uncertain, or making impulsive choices that complicate her life further. Yet, it is this honesty that makes the album feel not only relatable, but also revolutionary. In a music industry often driven by image, perfection, and glossy illusions, Coral was a breath of fresh air, an invitation to embrace the mess, to dwell in the emotional gray areas, and to own one's narrative without apology. SZA's relationship with the Grammy Awards has been both a marker of her artistic significance and a source of controversy and conversation in the music world. Her debut studio album, Coral, released in 2017, earned her 5 Grammy nominations at the 60th Annual Grammy Awards in 2018, including the prestigious Best New Artist category. The album itself was nominated for Best Urban Contemporary Album, while standout tracks like Love Galore, featuring Travis Scott, received a nod for Best Rap, Sung Performance, and The Weeknd was nominated for Best R&B Performance. These nominations were a formal recognition by the Recording Academy of her impact, innovation, and rising influence in the music industry. SZA, at the time, was the most nominated female artist that year, an impressive feat for a debut album. It was a moment that signaled the mainstream finally acknowledging the brilliance of a genre-defying black female artist who had emerged outside of the typical pop star mold. However, despite her multiple nominations and critical acclaim, SZA left the ceremony empty-handed, which sparked immediate backlash from fans, fellow artists, and music critics alike. The fact that SZA did not win a single Grammy, despite having arguably one of the most influential and emotionally resonant albums of the year, led to widespread discussions about how the Grammys have historically overlooked genre-pushing artists, especially black women, in favor of more traditional or commercially safer choices. Many viewed SZA's snub as emblematic of the Recording Academy's failure to keep pace with cultural shifts and artistic innovation. In the aftermath, she remained graceful but clearly disappointed, stating in interviews that while the recognition was appreciated, she did not make music for awards. Still, the nominations themselves elevated her visibility and further solidified her place among the top tier of modern artists. The public reaction to her loss only fueled her growing status as a voice for young women navigating emotional complexity in a world that often devalues vulnerability. The discourse surrounding her Grammy experience added to her cultural resonance, showing that her music had struck such a deep chord with fans that they were willing to challenge institutional decisions on her behalf. Years later, SZA's long-anticipated follow-up album SOS, released in December 2022, marked a new chapter in her Grammy narrative. The album debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 and held the position for 10 consecutive weeks, an unprecedented feat for a female R&B artist in the 2020s. It was critically acclaimed and commercially dominant, signaling not just a return, but a full-blown ascension. At the 66th Annual Grammy Awards in 2024, SZA earned a staggering 9 nominations, making her the most nominated artist of the year. These included Album of the Year and Best Progressive R&B Album for SOS, Record of the Year and Song of the Year for Kill Bill, and additional nominations for tracks like Snooze and Good Days. The widespread recognition of her work by the Recording Academy this time around was seen by many as a correction, a long-overdue acknowledgement of an artist who had been setting the tone for modern R&B and alternative soul for nearly a decade. The song Kill Bill, in particular, became a cultural phenomenon, with its catchy hook and cinematic narrative about obsession and revenge. The song captured listeners' imaginations and showcased SZA's ability to blend dark humor, emotional storytelling, and genre innovation. It topped the Billboard Hot 100 and was nominated for both Record of the Year and Song of the Year, 2 of the most prestigious awards in the Grammy lineup. These nominations placed her alongside industry heavyweights and highlighted her music's crossover appeal, not just to niche R&B fans, but to a global, mainstream audience. Her collaborations were also recognized, such as Ghost in the Machine with Phoebe Bridgers, showing how SZA continued to build musical bridges across genres, drawing indie, alternative, and soul influences into a cohesive and compelling sound. The Grammys' embrace of SOS felt like a symbolic moment of validation, not only for SZA, but for the entire movement of genre-fluid artists she helped lead. Her ability to speak to deeply personal and often uncomfortable emotional truths without sacrificing sonic experimentation made her a standout in a field that often rewards conformity. The Academy's acknowledgement of this evolution demonstrated an increasing awareness of how the boundaries between R&B, pop, and alternative music are being redrawn by artists like her. While awards are never the sole measure of artistic value, SZA's Grammy journey offers a lens into how institutions like the Recording Academy grapple with evolving cultural tides. Her initial snub in 2018 served as a flashpoint for discussions about fairness and representation in music, while her sweeping nominations in 2024 marked a moment of redemption and progression, an indication that her influence had become too significant to ignore. SZA's sophomore album, SOS, released on December 9, 2022, represented not just a continuation of her artistic journey, but a major escalation in terms of ambition, scope, and cultural impact. After the massive success of ctrl, fans waited for over 5 years for her next full-length project. The pressure was immense. ctrl had become a generational touchstone, widely considered one of the most influential R&B albums of the 2010s, and expectations for a follow-up were sky-high. When SOS finally arrived, it did not disappoint. Instead, it exploded into the mainstream with a level of power, confidence, and depth that revealed SZA's growth as both an artist and a storyteller. Debuting at number 1 on the Billboard 200, the album held that spot for 10 non-consecutive weeks, an achievement rarely seen in the R&B genre, especially for a female solo artist. It wasn't just a commercial juggernaut, it became a cultural phenomenon, dominating social media conversations, inspiring countless covers and TikTok trends, and leading to sold-out arena tours. SOS showcased an artist in full control of her vision, unafraid to experiment, and eager to expand the emotional and sonic palette she first introduced with ctrl. The album spans a wide range of genres and moods, further blurring the lines between R&B, pop, alternative rock, and hip-hop. While ctrl was characterized by a more cohesive neo-soul and alt-R&B vibe, SOS plays like a mixtape of SZA's inner world, chaotic, beautiful, self-reflective, and occasionally destructive. The lead single, Good Days, had already become a slow-burning hit before the album dropped, debuting during the pandemic and eventually climbing to the top 10 of the Billboard Hot 100. Its introspective lyrics and dreamy, meandering production set the tone for the emotional openness that would define the rest of the album. But SOS was not limited to soft introspection. It also featured moments of aggression, messiness, and brutal honesty that signaled a new chapter in SZA's artistic voice. In tracks like Smoking on My X-Pac, she delivers sharp bars over boom-bap production with the energy of a seasoned rapper, showing that she's not afraid to flex her lyrical muscle in a more assertive, confrontational tone. This track and others like it provided a balance to the more vulnerable cuts, creating a multidimensional portrayal of emotional complexity.